Hello, my name's Kevin O'Rourke, and today I'd like to tell you about a couple of game experiences I've had lately. Particularly two. One, a friend of mine had recently gotten really to this idea. He discovered Midnight, and he decided he wanted to run a game of it. We're like, okay, that'll be pretty cool. He's had a bit of bad luck as a GM, as he feels he keeps killing his players. He's doing mostly pre-made adventures, but we've had some bad luck. Some players have made some bad choices, and a lot of times it's just been plain old bad luck. But he said, "Oh, I'll run this," but it's kind of awkward for him at the moment because he's doing a master's in college. So he's decided, it's like, okay, I can run it, but he's only able to run it during the day. For certain people, I do agency work, so I'm not working every day. So I was like, okay, he's happy enough to run it like this one particular day that I usually take off anyway, because a game I'm in that day, and I kind of like to have that particular day off for various reasons anyway. And another one of my friends who's currently doing courses and things like that, who's free that day as well. So we're on the two of us. But he goes off, and we basically, we got an introductory adventure, and I said, oh, he hadn't read the introductory adventure yet. He said, oh, well, I'd like to be, you know. So we looked through the book, and we were like, oh, you know, this is, I kind of looking at myself and going like, you know what, I was trying to mull over different ideas, but I found this idea of an orc. I said, you know, I could play an orc. I know they're meant to be horribly evil. I'd say occasionally one of them come around. And when the GM said, like, there on, he goes, what do people want to play? And I said, well, I've come up with this idea for an orc. And he's like, well, you know, orcs are very dodgy, and they're very evil, basically, and a lot of people are going to trust them. I said, you know, that's fine. But I had come up with this idea, and I decided to ran it by him, that my character had effectively realised he was, in some ways, he was almost as much of a slave as the humans were. He didn't like being a slave. He didn't like that he was being used and manipulated by his superiors. I purposely put a decent stat into his intelligence because he had to figure this out. So I was like, yeah, he's got to figure this stuff out. So I was like, okay. But as we went along, and I described something, he eventually killed his direct superior, and he killed several of the other orcs in his warband. I was like, then James was like, okay. So I said, from that day forward, he was known as, you know, he's called Kinslayer, because he's killed, you know, some of these were in fact relatives of his. So he's just known as Kinslayer among certain orc circles. Well, I basically tried to Jim, he's not starting off good. He's starting off, you know, he was chaotic evil before. I'm not just going to go suddenly chaotic good. He's going to be chaotic neutral. Not the crazy, you know, I'm absolutely not chaotic. He hasn't gone to the stage of being chaotic good yet. He's making that transition. He's not just going to be a completely crazy random guy, but he doesn't understand everything about humans yet and things. And originally I was going to have him basically, he would, you know, I said, oh, that seems like a, he described it like Lord of the Rings. So I was like, well, orcs eat other orcs in this, so he'll be, you know, in Lord of the Rings. So if that's the same way in this thing, he'll be pretty happy to, you know, if one of his human allies dies, he'd be happy to cook him up. This might cause some tension, but it could be good for role playing. And the other player wanted to play an elf rogue, and I said I'm going to play an orc rogue, and then I start taking levels, and you know, something like barbarian or fighter. I'm going to take the level in orc and rogue first, because he's actually going to be have learned to lie a bit. He's got a bit more diplomatic skills, so he isn't killed by the resistance at the first night. So like, I need to put ranks in these are going to be important. And so James was like, okay, that's a bit unexpected, but you know, you're doing it. But the GM came back before we actually went first session. I've actually read the first scenario book, and I want to take scenario books because I want to be authentic to the setting. I want to get used to it because I haven't really ran 3.5, which is set before. It's like, okay, fair enough. But the scenario is very much, you shouldn't have elves, you shouldn't have orcs. I was like, really? You can't have orcs and you can have elves? I was like, that's really terribly written. You know, you gotta like, if you go like, it's not really suited to have them, but you need to have a sidebar. It's like, well, they do have a sidebar. But eventually, because he saw I really liked the idea of this guy, I liked the long-term idea of this guy, that eventually he'd come around and he would become a champion of good. But for now, he's still making that transition. He's still on the road. You know, he's level 1. He hasn't made all the, he hasn't just, I'm not going to have him coming out with this big brand hero kind of type thing. But he's on the road, and if things work out, he'd go that way. And we go through the scenario, And because there's only 2 of us, he said, well, the scenario is built for 4 people. So he halved the number of enemies in the scenario. I won't go through everything that happened. But in one of the fights we're fighting 4 orcs, and there's 2 of us. And we're effectively both rogues. The other player, like he said, I won't make an elf, he made a human. He kind of came up with a cool idea. He was a very young human. But we did some cool stuff. But everybody, he's like, James, like, look, if you want to play an orc, like, he's like, you really do seem to want to play an orc, I'll let you play an orc. But you've got to accept people are going to, you know, they're not going to be nice to you. And I was like, well, yeah, I chose to play an orc. I assume, like, they don't say, oh, you got this penalties to social skills and stuff. But of course people are going to be suspicious of me. Of course people are going to be less likely to trust me. I'm playing an orc. I know what I'm in for. I described it to him. At some stage I'd kind of like to, you know, potentially start gathering other like-minded orcs to me, get leadership feat, and effectively start leading them against, you know, the Shadow. And basically, as far as my character's concerned, I can't talk about if the Shadow Lord, whatever, I can't remember his name is now, but if he was kicked out of heaven or the gods realm, Olympus, by the other gods, then he is the weakest of the gods, and therefore he is unworthy of the world. Even though he made them, he is not the god who deserves the respect of the orcs. Because in his mind, there's kind of 2 versions of the character, but in his mind, I still had theirs. Like, in his mind, he's like, when it comes to the races, the orcs are top, they're the best. The dwarfs are then coming in. Not necessarily that close, but they're then coming. Dwarfs in the next section. Then the elves. And then the humans. This is bi-arching, because the elves and the dwarfs never stopped fighting back against the Shadow. The humans had given up. And he would show a certain level of respect to any humans who were in the resistance, who would fight back, but any who just lay down and accepted their imprisonment. Even though they had very damn good reasons, because of how horrible the world is, he's like, no, they don't deserve my respect. They don't need it. But we went in, and the GM had half the number of orcs in the encounter from an 8 to a 4. Thinking this would be okay. And it's very hard to try and, because they had actually put in guidelines for, you know, if you've got more players in this, you can upscale like this. There was no guidelines for reducing the difficulty, and I think 4 might have been a bit tough for us, especially because if I actually hit them, because I was using Great Hard Dutch and a strength of 19 and stuff, if I hit them with this thing, I was killing them. But the problem is I'd hit them and they were still hitting in the meantime. And they're basically in the second fight of the game, we had a TPK. There was only 2 of us. I went down, and we'd previously gone down. The first fight we'd gone down, but there were NPCs there to help us as well. But in this fight, no, there's no NPCs. And we had seen before we went in, there was a dwarf hold. We'd seen these orcs urinating on the bodies of the dwarfs they'd killed. So we said, as the other player said, so it's not enough that we died. We know our characters got pissed on after we died. Our corpses were desecrated, and then they probably ate our bodies anyway, or not. So we, you know, like, you got the great potential in Midnight to be a big damn hero, but you aren't necessarily going to survive because it's very harsh. But I was kind of looking forward to going on, but the GM became very disheartened. I said, you know, I'm up for it, because I died first. Your men survived for a round or 2 after me. As I said to him, was like, we could have made some choices better, but I was originally going, you stay back. I'll go in, I'll push him. I'm an orc, so I can basically potentially get in close enough so I can get him close and smack him with my weapon, get a sneak attack in or whatever. Rather than just trying to charge in, I'll try and basically bluff my way so I can at least get close enough and start in close combat with them. Because I'd used up all my javelins. The other player hadn't. You start off with so little gear, although you're starting off with effectively a level adjustment compared to you're more powerful with your base abilities. Then in 3.5, your gear, you get less money. So I had my Verdutch, and I had studded leather armor, and I had some javelins. He just had, like, he had a great sword, I think, and oh no, he went for a short sword because his strength was only 10 and stuff, but he went with a short sword. He had no range weapon. I really suffered because I started off with 5 javelins, but we had to run after the first fight. Like, we took a couple of guys down, but we weren't able to go back and get our weapons because of the way the first fight in that scenario went down. So I couldn't get my javelins back, and I hadn't had a bow. If I had arrows, I'd be like, oh, if we use up a couple of arrows, and I was handing him the javelins, like, no, we'll throw these things at these guys for, like, we'll make an impact first before we go in. But the GM was very dismayed. So he didn't want to continue it on after that point, after he both died. Like I said, he's some bad spirits. And the funny thing is, I think the first game he tried to jam was a 4-head game. It had been going on for a while, but after a certain point, I think it was after like it was running Keep on the Shadowfell. And we're taking these goblins or hobgoblins somewhere in some cave, and myself and this other player were both playing paladins. He was playing a Dragonborn paladin, I was playing a Warforged paladin. Came with the school background from LinkedIn. One of the other players, he was a paladin of Pelor, and one of the other players was a cleric of Pelor. And there's various still different things. And I really liked the idea of doing the character, but when we were fighting off some of these goblins, one of the other players, the Dwarf Barbarian, couldn't get into combat. He couldn't get into combat that turn. So he said, I'll go round here, and he runs out in the next chamber. That's where the boss battle is. So he effectively attracted the attention of the boss, and James was like, well, I've got this. And he was getting in trouble then, because he was out to fight off all these guys. So my paladin, being a paladin, goes, no, you go help him, I'll hold him off. There's only 2 left at this point. However, when everyone else had moved off, the GM was like, oh no, because they have specials for outnumbering. And one of them crit me. Then one of them did almost automatic max damage, and they killed me. And if you actually ever looked at 4th Head, unfortunately the way the Warforged are done up in it, so I was like, you have to make these rolls if you go under 0 hit points. Unless you take enough damage, just flat out, just kill you. You have to make these rolls, and you can take 10 on these as a Warforged. And I was like, what? I get that you're supposed to be, you might be a little bit hard to kill because you're not going to bleed out with blood or whatever, but it's like, it takes away a lot of risk. Then again, I went smack, down. That's it. Just with a crit and an almost max damage roll, I went down. And the other guy inside the next, the other player who was playing a paladin, went down. And we just started to jokes of, no, never play a paladin in his games. He hates them. He must be out to kill you. And he was like, I don't hate them. It's not, you all died. It's not my fault. Because 2 paladins in the group both died. So I quickly started rolling up a mage, and I made a tiefling wizard. And I said, okay, I'll do these things up. And I said, okay, this is my second character I've made for 4th Head. So and I know a bit more about what I'm doing. I said, I'm not going to make another paladin. We need somebody for dealing with crowds. So I made a tiefling wizard, focusing on fire magic a bit. Not completely, but a bit. I started bringing it as I came in, was like doing like these AoE scorching blast or something like that, going boom, boom, boom. Real crap out of them. We finished the adventure, but 2 of the original characters weren't there. Which was half the party. It's like, oh, okay, but just unfortunately that time didn't work out. And when midnight, it was even worse because we had a complete TPK, and he was thinking back to, oh no, remember that time, right? And you guys both died, and you ran a Death Watch game, and a couple of characters died, including my own, which really sucked because I was working that night. So I said, no, you run the game without me because I'm sick of, I don't like, one player's missing, let's not run the game. Okay, she's like, well, one player's missing, but where we left it directly affects their character, so we can leave it off for this week and hopefully it'll be there next week. I don't like leaving games in the middle there in that awkward position where you have the GM and you just have this difficult place. You can't leave it like that sometimes. You have to wait. You can't just go ahead when the player's not there because it can be critically important to their character. I get that. But I hate when you have a situation where the GM, where you've got 5 players and they will refuse to run the game if any of the players are missing. Because it's not fair to run without them. You know what that happens? That drags out, particularly if you've got particularly flaky players. It will drag it out. It will make it so. Now, if you've got a couple of players out there, that's fair enough. If you've got, you're 5, if you got 2, I can kind of get it. If you've got 3, I definitely get it. In fact, I'd be recommending, if you're only enough 2 of your damn players there, unless you do, I'm going to do like a side quest kind of type thing with just you guys while they're off doing something else. That can be fine. That can work out. Depends what point you're at. But I don't like that style of approaching it where you just don't run it if one player is missing, because you can end up with weeks or potentially months going by and you start running other things. It's like, okay, the time between can definitely have an impact and damage the momentum and people's enthusiasm for the game. So I prefer to keep going. I realised that I'm coming on to about 50 minutes. I haven't talked about the main thing I was going to go talk about. I'm going to do that in a different video. So apologies for saying I was going to talk about things, but you also got my thoughts on, you know, running a game and players aren't there, which can be a bit difficult. So I'll make a video later and I'll tell you about the events that transpired after that game, which pretty much was the other player in the game, seeing that we had put aside this time for the game set. We went off, we had some food, and then he said, you know what, I'm going to run a game. So he hadn't run a game in a while. He said, I'm going to run a game. And we started throwing on character days. And then I started doing one of the other characters I've ever run for any kind of D&D or Pathfinder game. And I was delighted because I haven't gotten to play Pathfinder. Even though I love it, I haven't gotten to play it that much. I played 3.5, but not that much Pathfinder. So I'll tell you about this unusual character next time. I'll see you again. Goodbye.